Uh-oh, the concern trolling for Elden Ring on Switch 2 has begun. All of these paid shills on YouTube and Twitter are releasing these statements that the game is broken and unplayable on Switch 2, that Bandai Namco isn't allowing people to show it off, that it runs and plays terribly. And I'm just sitting here thinking, oh yeah, it's just like the PC version of the game, right? Absolutely no differences to be had. Elden Ring was disgusting. It is the video game equivalent of a fat chick at the beach. She's wearing the skimpiest thing imaginable to show off all the blubber. She's trying to pull in whales from the ocean. And even they are just like, whoa, bro. You need to lay off on the krill and lose a couple of weights. Like, even actual whales think this chick is disgusting. That is Elden Ring, okay? That is what this game is. And the sheer audacity of the FromSoftware community to try and pretend that this game runs well, that it looks good, that it has a good storyline, that it's a good game in general, has been positively one of the most disgusting things of the decade. Far surpassing even that of Baldur's Gate 3, because Elden Ring has no redeeming qualities at all. It is and always has been complete open world slop. It is this decade's equivalent of like Metal Gear Solid 5, a franchise ruining release that is being heralded as a masterpiece by plebeians who don't know what they're talking about. And that's been the case for years now. And like with any title that's worshipped by the masses, whether it's like Mass Effect 3 or Witcher 3 or like whatever else, once this game hits Nintendo consoles and real gamers can see how shit it is, you know, when real gamers get a hold of it and realize that, like, wow, this game is stale and outdated even compared to Breath of the Wild. You know, like when people realize just how much better the average Nintendo exclusive is than Elden Ring, the entire narrative is going to implode. It's going to be a lot like Cyberpunk 2077. You know, the community fought to have Cyberpunk 2077 be worshipped as like the big major AAA release of the Switch 2 life cycle. This was supposed to be the big Switch game at launch. You know, it was going to be a completely fixed version of the game. It was going to look and run gorgeously. It was going to be this big deal. And yet, like, it just got mogged by Hogwarts Legacy, which I think we can safely say was more successful than this at this stage. You know, mogged by like, you know, Zelda, which was an older game, like, you know, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Mario Kart World. Like, Cyberpunk 2077 was not the big major release on the Switch 2, and yet, like, people have been trying to insist it was. You know, out of a desperate attempt to keep up the facade that, like, CD Projekt Red is some, like 10 out of 10 development studio. It's the same situation with FromSoftware. You know, FromSoftware is in the same position that CD Projekt Red was a decade ago when Witcher 3 came out, because people worshipped that game. They hyped it up. They said it was the second coming of Christ. They said it was better than Christ. You know, like they tried to do everything they could to make Geralt of Rivia like some iconic video game character. They tried to produce TV shows, animated series, comics. You know, they tried to like get gamers to read the original books. You know, they tried like selling board games. They tried selling trading card games. They tried like merchandising, and yet like a decade later, none of it has amounted to anything. And like we're right back where we started. They're remaking Witcher 1 and they're producing a woke Witcher 4. And the game will be woke, by the way. Like FromSoftware is in the same position, right? Where the hype behind Elden Ring is so far beyond FromSoftware that they're having a lot of problems getting under it. You know, like of course this has led to games like Night Rain underperforming, and it's going to lead to games like Duskbloods being wildly hated and reviled by the community. But also the multimedia, you know, like the comic failed, you know, the manga failed, the animated series of Sekiro failed, you know, like Like there's nowhere really for Armor Core 6 failed, you know? Like there's really nowhere for FromSlop to go but down, you know? Once the fad behind Elden Ring dies, the company dies with it, you know? And I do think we're kind of in the early stages of like Souls fatigue to the point where like actual influencers are coming out and declaring that they're tired of this format. And they should be. It's one of the most milked like genres I've ever seen in my life. You know, what once was a very refreshing take on the action RPG formula has morphed itself into some weird like just ma- casualized mainstream slop. You know, it's just Elden Ring looks and plays identically to the original Dark Souls with none of the charm, none of the character, none of the personality, none of the lore, none of the things that made Dark Souls like interesting, fresh, or exciting. It's just the same thing again. And I think Nintendo audiences playing Elden Ring, you know, for the first time, you know, years after release, you know, it's not going to be like kids playing Ocarina of Time like 20 years after release where people realize that like, wow, this game really is as good as people make it out to be. Like, no, it's going to be a lot of people are going to be going into Elden Ring for the first time ever, and they're just going to go like, "That's it." Like that's Elden Ring, you know. You know, Nintendo fans, you know, we play at a higher level. You know, we're gonna breeze through this game. You know, like all the bosses will go down easily. Like everyone will just like be taken aback by how empty the open world is. They'll be bored to tears by the combat system. They'll be unimpressed by the bosses, which are way more dynamic and interesting in Tears of the Kingdom and Donkey Kong Bonanza. Like, how exactly is this port of a 3-year-old game going to win over anybody? You know, and it seems as if like we're at that stage now where people are like acknowledging that Elden Ring is not so great. You are seeing YouTubers release statements about how the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Elden Ring looks and plays awful. And that's true because the game looked and played terribly to begin with. They shouldn't surprise anybody. You know, what you're seeing is a bunch of people who have never played Elden Ring before who are shocked by the low quality of it all. They really were expecting something on par with like Super Mario Galaxy or The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, you know, like the best game ever made. But the way things are looking now, like Elden Ring, by the end of the decade, is going to be completely forgotten. And I do think like this port is going to be the beginning of the end of FromSlop and their obsessive autistic fan base.